Yeah, and to respond to that thing you said, right, about sometimes you tell people, yeah, that's something I've noticed. Like, if you ever tell somebody who really likes drinking, really likes smoking, whether it is tobacco, weed, alcohol, whatever it is, and you tell them, wow, you do that a lot, they get offended. Like, you just took a slide at them. Like, how fucking dare you? I do what I want. That kind of thing. How dare you judge me, kind of thing. Or, it's one of those, like, you should tone it down, dude. You're gonna kill yourself. Oh, how fucking dare you? I do what I want. So, my family tells me I'm gonna get health problems for my milk tea addiction when I'm older. I look at them and say, yup, milk tea. Why? Because it's got sugar. Like, of all things you would give someone shit about, milk tea. Like, milk tea. I would understand if it was like in my case with Pepsi, right? Like, I used to drink 3-liter Pepsi bottles in like 20 minutes. I'm not even kidding. I drank so much Pepsi in my high school years. It was insane. I don't understand how I wasn't morbidly obese. Milk tea, though. Smoking, I'm gonna get offended. I do need to quit. It's just not so easy. Yeah. And like in your case, Jippy, you're very self-aware. You're a very honest person. So yeah, you're seeing it as a cold thing. And yeah, it needs to happen. I just don't want. I just know it's not gonna be easy, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think the vice I've picked is an okay one to the spectrum of life-ruining vices. Yeah, milk tea. Yeah, I don't know how I ever gotten a single cavity. I love sweets. I also have. I used to have a sweet tooth, not as much anymore. But I guess you just take good care of yourself, and that's it. Minty and cracking my knuckles. This is coming from my past father in his 50s, smoked since he was 13. My drinker when she was 28. There you go. There you go. I refuse to take his health critique seriously. It's very difficult to acknowledge when somebody who you don't want to be right is right. Because I had that today with a friend. I was texting a friend earlier today, and she was telling me how she was super pissed that somebody at the office dared complain that the Muslim colleagues were getting to work from home because of Ramadan. I was like, wait, your office does that? Like, if you're in a religious group, you get... Because offices see working from home. Like, her office sees working from home as a privilege. So you are giving me... cracking knuckles, cracking your bones is a myth. Absolutely. So if you're telling me that your office has a policy that if you belong to a religious/political group, you get privileges. That's not okay. I don't care what religious or political group you're in. If belonging to it gives you extra privileges, I see that as a bad thing. But because it was this dickhead that said it, she didn't want to admit it. So, some guy did research and cracked knuckles only one hand for like 20 years. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, no, and for cracking knuckles, like, it's only bad if it actually hurts. I want extra privileges. Yeah, and I see that as bad. You don't give, as a workplace, extra privileges to people that they did not earn. You set a single standard for everyone that can be met. So, according to him, Minty will make my wrists go weak, less stiff. I call bullshit. Healthier than he is, and he knows... no. He knows I'm right a lot. Yeah, no, that's right. So, yeah, no, I'm not saying that he was right or he wasn't right, but I had to encounter that today about how sometimes the person you don't want to be right is right. Right now, the biggest case we're seeing, and I'm going to get political, is Trump. His observations about Ukraine are accurate. Ukraine cannot win this war without starting World War III. End of story. You have to suck up to Russia if you want to bring them to the table. And you have to behave like it. That is also accurate. Because otherwise, the war rages on forever. Is Russia going to honor the peace treaty? We're going to have to find out. We don't know. Probably not. But it's better than the war raging on forever. But because it's Trump who said it, he's a dickhead, and no one likes his dickhead, then yeah. Strongly about sucking up to Russia and how we handle it. And how he handled it. I believe in the order of things, you have to cozy up to them if you want them to come to the negotiation table. If he started yelling that Putin is a murderous tyrant just like everyone else, do you think he would come to the negotiation table? If he started yelling like a lunatic like the rest of the people want him to? No, he wouldn't. And that means the war rages on. Because Russia has no reason to stop. Russia has no reason to stop. Russia's winning the war. Russia, in my opinion, Russia won the war in week 3. So isn't there a Sun Tzu quote about sucking up to the enemy as a tactic? There are many. Who screams like a baby? Primal! How you doing, man? Welcome to today. Oh, that... I did not mean to answer the question like that. Just surrender without any guarantees or anything that happens while Putin ignoring every past pact and ceasefire? No, because the thing is, one of the safety guarantees is the minerals deal. And he didn't say that there's not going to be guarantees. They've made that very clear. They've clarified it. They're not there in the process. First, they wanted the minerals deal so that they can get into the conversations. They still need to negotiate that with Ukraine. Which, once I fucking swear, if it turns out that Trump ends up buying minerals from both Russia and Ukraine, and that's what fixes the war, it's gonna be so fucking funny. Imperial Winch with the enemy must hasten to defend, march swiftly to places where you are not expected. That is it. Yeah, no, Sun Tzu. Yeah, no, the art of war has all that kind of thing. And in this case, Russia is winning. The one country that cannot outlast Russia in a battle of attrition, because Russia historically cannot outlast almost anyone in a battle of attrition, in a war of attrition. There's one country that is the exception, and that's Ukraine. Ukraine is one of the like 5 countries out there that cannot outlast Russia in a war of attrition. Russia is historically exceedingly bad at wars of attrition. And they can only win against Ukraine. You're again giving it a very weird analysis. What's the winning condition for the war? What has the dispute been about? What has been the point of contention of the war? They can with Western support, and with Western support, you bring World War III. That's the problem. That's the only problem. Ukraine can win if the West gets involved. Who's winning condition? What do you mean, who's winning condition? What's the winning condition for the Russians? What do the Russians want in Ukraine? Why did Russia invade Ukraine? Past the "there's Nazis" lie. What did they want? What did the Russians want? What did the Russians want? The Russians didn't want the Western support that they are getting now. No. You mean draining everyone's bank accounts and expensing everything, money disappearing? It's not good. It's not sustainable. It's not enough. And Ukraine has said it's not enough. The winning condition for Russia is the Donbass. That's what they've been after the whole time. The Donbass. You know how we know that? Because the moment they launched their attacks on Kiev and Kharkiv and Odessa, while that was happening, they were cementing their positions in the Donbass. They made the border in the Donbass, and they have not moved from there. Like, they got repelled out of Kiev, they got repelled out of Kharkiv, they got repelled out of Odessa, all these other towns, and they fell back to the Donbass, and they have not moved from there. And Ukraine has failed miserably every single time to retake it. The win condition is who controls the Donbass. And for the past 3 years, it has been Russia who controls the Donbass. To win the war, each side must fulfill the objective to the latter. It's not about kill your conquest. If you fail your objectives, like what America failed to stop the spread of communism, yes, they absolutely moved the border of Donbass. That is their main line of advance. Yes, and that has been their objective. They didn't want anything else. They wanted the Donbass. The whole time, even before it started the war, they were going on about how Luhansk, Donetsk, they want independence from Ukraine. You know, they held their elections. They want to secede. We are going to protect them from their... There's Nazis. We need to liberate. We need to denazify. You know, Russia went in. They went in. And... they went into the... I am assuming a lot. What other objective do you see from Russia? Because if they wanted to destroy Ukraine, they would have by now. They just move their line forward. They send enough suicide attacks, and it's done. But no, they wanted the Donbass. They've wanted the Donbass the whole time. They have the Donbass. They have territorial control over the Donbass, and they have very, very, very firmly held it. I don't like it. I don't want it to be. The Donbass, like, the Donbass should be either with Ukraine or, if they legitimately voted for independence, maybe independence. They've been attacking the entire time. They've been attacking all over the place. But how come their line of defense in the Donbass is damn near impenetrable for the Ukrainians, and every time we see an advanced group from the Russians, it's a humiliating defeat. They can't even... They're bringing, like, World War II equipment. These guys are rookies. These guys are, like, 18-year-olds, conscripts. They didn't even want to be there. They're just out there dying. They don't know what they're doing. An army that incompetent, holding the line of the Donbass that strongly. I have my theory on that. They want to depose the Ukrainian government and install puppets like in Belarus. Where did you get that? Because if they wanted that, they would have advanced farther than the Donbass. Like the whole line. They are dug in the Donbass. The defensive line they said in the Donbass was not a temporary, we're going to push through, we're going to push this line forward and forward and forward and forward kind of line. That's their, they've fortified the Donbass. You cannot enter the Donbass as Ukraine. If what you said was true, they wouldn't have done that with the Donbass. The Donbass would not have been held as fiercely as it has been. I don't think so. Because the Russians do not have a good army. Donbass is protected mostly by artillery and ground fortifications. They tried in the south, but got disrupted. Yeah, and the one country with an even worse army than that in this area is Ukraine. That's my point here. The Russians don't have a good army. Like, what was it? I saw a comment that was like, okay, right now militarily you have the USA at 100, China at like maybe 70, Russia at 65, Ukraine is at like 40. At best. You know, they don't got that much. So the Hungarian and Romanian kind of thing, the motivations and hatred run too deep for a simple deconstruction. Most likely, yeah, there's probably like 10, 15, 100 other layers here. Other places, they're digging as well, right? They're digging in some sense in a lot of other places, but it's the Donbass that they've held fiercely. It's the Donbass that they've made sure to spare no expense to prevent the Ukrainians from breaking through. Because we've seen many counteroffensives from Ukraine trying to break through the Donbass. Every single time we are met with silence because those counteroffensives fail. How come these counteroffensives are so successful everywhere else? How come they are able to repel them from anywhere else except the border of the Donbass? It's not that the Russians are magically getting lucky at the Donbass. They are sparing no expense to hold it. If they're sparing no expense to hold it that fiercely, I don't know what else you need to see that is their objective. Because if their objective was to go to Kiev and dethrone Zelensky, they would be advancing a lot more fiercely. The groups we see, those are basically insurgency groups, like small strike squads that are at best diversions to try and divert the Ukrainian army into the other sides. Just like they did when they invaded Kiev and Kharkiv. They didn't send out their best forces to Kiev and Kharkiv. No, their best forces are in the Donbass. They're holding the Donbass, and they have successfully held the Donbass for 3 years. Every other offensive that Russia has held has been surprisingly pathetic. Like, if the whole army was at the same strength at these offensives that Russia has done beyond the Donbass, they would have lost the war a long time ago. They would have been repelled easily. Just like they were repelled out of Kharkiv and Kiev and Odessa, thank God. I'm of the opinion that those are conscripts that they threw with the old equipment. You know, their political enemies and everything, they just conveniently threw them in there, sent them out to die, so they stop bothering you. It sounds like the perfect thing that Russia would do. History has been about the victors. How can you trust what you see and read? You need to cross-reference stuff. We live in unprecedented times when it comes to information. We live in a time right now where we can actually potentially access all of the information, or most of the information. And we have, our little rectangles of doom that allow us to see a lot of these things from most sides, which is insane. And all facts alone and peace efforts won't be enough to quell rivalry that is centuries old. Probably. Like, I think I disagree with the Americans about Ukraine not being allowed into NATO. I think, if anything, Russia invading Ukraine is proof that NATO needs to exist. It's why NATO needs to exist, and I'm of the opinion that Ukraine and every other country that wants to join NATO should be allowed to join in unconditionally, and Russia has lost any argument they have against it. Because the whole point of NATO is to protect a country in case Russia invades. And guess the fuck what? Russia has invaded, and they keep invading. So the only thing that is going to happen is the deterrent. Like, fucking put China in NATO, dude. Bring China, bring India into NATO. That's it. I don't care. That's it. I can't believe we're still streaming. I went to the doctor's back already. Okay, good. Good for you, man. Yeah, we're still playing Alan Wake. But yeah, no, to close this, I'm of the opinion that Ukraine lost the war, or are losing the war, and without the West interfering heavily, they lose. That means Ukraine is not coming to the negotiation table from a position of strength. Russia is. Even though Russia has been cheating as well. They've been bringing the North Koreans, they've been taking China stuff, they've been taking stuff from a bunch of different people. They've been having their interference as well. But they control the Donbass. They control the land. So if America wasn't continent, instead connected fractured countries like Europe and the Baltics, they would have a NATO on their own. The United States is that. It's 50 states. They are 50 small countries. Not even small countries, they're 50 substantially sized countries that are under a single flag. So, yeah, I could just go it alone, where you go to neighbors' motivations on their own, you need assurances and mutual laws. Yeah. And I think right now, in my opinion, this whole thing with Russia, you have to face the reality of the situation. You can't just go in. Ukraine is going to have to lose something. Ukraine is going to have to concede to something. I hope Russia agrees to concede to something as well, but Russia are the ones coming from a position of strength. Russia would not be able to hold out if they did so far without support. They are not winning greatly with the war of attrition. Exactly. So Russia does have a vested interest in jumping into the negotiation table, because they cannot last that long in a war of attrition. The only country that cannot outlast them is Ukraine. That's the big problem right now. Because if they were fighting anyone else, even fucking Pakistan or Afghanistan, because we saw how the Russians did in Afghanistan, right? If it was anyone other than Ukraine, the Russians would not outlast them in a war of attrition. Absolutely not. Like, even with the North Koreans jumping in, even with the Chinese jumping in, they would not outlast them. Ukraine is the one place that they can outlast. Trump wants Russia to get all they wanted and strongly incentivizes kind of attacks in the future. Is that what you know in your heart of hearts that he is going to do? Or is that what he's saying so that the guy will just at least sit down at the fucking table? You're not going to announce your strategy to the world. You're not going to announce your what cards you're holding. You don't announce what you have when you're playing poker. There is a level of strategy, and believe it or not, Trump's a smart guy. That's what president shows. President. Yeah. It's muddy. It's muddy. But I do see your point. And I hope you are wrong. Yeah. I see your point, and I hope you are wrong. Because the implications of you being right, yeah, that's not good. That's not good. I would much rather have the president that speaks with honey to Putin and brings the war to an end and secures Ukraine's safety than the previous guy we had who was speaking poison and allowed this whole thing to happen. Trump is acting like a businessman when you need a general. No, you need a businessman. You need to make a deal here. Because a general implies you're jumping into World War III. I don't know about you. I'm not sacrificing London for Kiev. I'm not sacrificing New York City for Kharkiv. Not doing it. It's not worth it. And then there's the fact that there's also war fatigue going on. The Russians have a higher tolerance of war fatigue. Ukraine is running out of people. Again, the war of attrition. The one country that cannot outlast Russia is Ukraine. So, Trianon, oh boy, I live in Hungary. I know how much guys awarded Transylvania to Romania, which is a major blow to Hungary and a source of lasting resentment. Patreon but not as well, among many other things, just like Hungary and Romania. My favorite thing about the Treaty of Trianon and at World War II. World War I. Some fucking Austrians start a global conflict. Hungary gets involved. Germany somehow extends it. Germany loses the war. For some fucking reason, Hungary loses land. World War II. Some fucking Austrian starts a global conflict. The Hungarians join in. Germany continues and loses the war. For some fucking reason, Hungary loses land. So here's how I know. Here's how we know there's no World War III. There's no World War III until Hungary gets involved. Until some Austrian starts it, Hungary gets involved, and the Germans lose it. That's how we know it's not a world war. People as well. Since the tolerance for the Yemen is going bad, and that's why they need the North Korean. Yeah, no, I know. You're right. I'm not disagreeing with you here. You are making an accurate observation as well. What I am telling you is the one country that cannot outlast Russia in a war of attrition and war fatigue is Ukraine. That's the one place. Even though Russia is starting to go into their desperate measures, as they do, the only country that cannot outlast them and win against them in such a situation is Ukraine. So yeah, it's in the best interest. And I think I did see an analysis that Putin got himself into this war. He can't lose it that easily, but he also can't win it either. Because yes, they are winning right now. They hold the territory, but it is costing Russia a lot. If Putin withdraws, that's going to make him look weak. That's his head on the chopping block. Because, Russian government, not necessarily the most civilized out there. This is going to give him an out. I think Russia is going to concede to a lot more than what we're expecting. I do think so. Second, people have the means to make demands and take actions. They will. As annoying and stupid America is, they do need to play world police here. And that's what they don't want to do anymore. But I think in this case, we're talking about America. They have enough submarines out there. But they have enough navy and submarines out there to destroy the entire world without needing to deploy nukes. So, yeah, ideologically, we do need Ukraine to get proper deal, not a bad one, because otherwise that incentivizes wars for territory. Yeah. Ideally, not ideologically, ideally, we do need Ukraine to lose as little as possible. Let's hope that they can work out a good deal. Because otherwise, yeah, the only other deterrent would be for everyone else to join NATO or another alliance against Russia. Because Russia has proven that they cannot be trusted. In that, I am 100% agreeing. I don't disagree there. It's not. It's one of these things. It's a pick your poison kind of thing. Because if you insist that Russia must give up the Donbass, they're not going to want to. Why would they? So you need to give them something that compensates for that, or they're not leaving, and you get World War III, or you get, just let the two fucking fight it out. Which ideologically speaking, a lot of the West wants to get involved. So Zelensky asked prompted Vance to start yelling stupid shit what diplomacy is. President Zelensky went to the White House to sign the mineral deal. He started talking about these things, which, look at it from Trump's perspective. Putin has no reason to come to the table. We are still in the phases of we need to be in the good graces of Putin to bring him to the table. Zelensky's coming to the table. There's no way Zelensky's not coming to the table. Zelensky's more desperate than Putin. Putin is desperate. Don't get me wrong. He is desperate. But you do need to cozy up to him. And part of cozying up to him will show that you can be rough on Zelensky. You're not showing too much favoritism towards Zelensky. You just want the war to end. You need to even at least pretend that you're being impartial. Because what's the fucking point of jumping in to a negotiating table if the mediator is biased? US guarantees needs to come before the deal. No, it needs to come as part of the deal. Or as part of the enforcement of the deal. Which, yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. It's just semantics. You're estimating the Ukrainian desperation. Zelensky will not take a bad deal. I know. So that's going to be... And there's a difference between a bad deal and the Ukrainians not compromising on anything. They are going to have to compromise on something. We just don't know what that is, because at this point, we weren't even sure if they were going to walk into the table, if everybody was going to agree to go to the table. Ukrainians are proud people, just like the Poles. We fight to the last if we have to. And if that's what Ukraine wants to do, they can do it by themselves. That's what the U.S. has said. We are not going to waste more of our money. If you're gonna fight to the last, go ahead. We want this to end, and if we want this to end, it's going to be on our terms. It's going to be in the U.S.'s terms. Ukraine is not in a position to make demands. They are not. They just are not. I would like them to be. They are not. They are not in a position to make demands. Russia is the aggressor, and they shouldn't be either, but they are. Because they hold the land. They hold the land. So they are in a position of strength. Ukraine is not in a position of strength. And the U.S. is going to try to compensate for that in making a peace deal. And that's the nasty part. Because I don't want Ukraine to lose. I want Ukraine to stay the way it was before Russia invaded Crimea. I want Crimea to go back to the Ukrainians. But you can't always get what you want. Especially with somebody as ruthless and maniacal as Putin. And he's got the cards right now. And you need to convince him to come to the table. If you go in and you're yelling that he's a maniac and that he's a terrorist, he's not going to come to the table. The war rages on. And that's that. So, if you like Putin wanted, the war would be over with nuclear option, but there are severe consequences for that. Partially. That's the last resort, and that's the problem. He has nukes. Ukraine does not. And that's a big deterrent as to why you don't want conflict to escalate much more. Natalia is honorable, but the fervent desire to die for a country that sees you as disposable, fuck no. And in the case of Russia and Ukraine, it's almost the same thing. Ukrainians are proud people, but don't forget, They are the one country that cannot outlast Russia. And war fatigue is a thing. There is a point that even a Pole, even a Ukrainian will see this is simply not worth it. And we'll see. Ukraine has no nukes because the US signed a pact to defend them in case of an attack. No, they didn't. The pact was with Russia. The pact was with Russia. Russia had promised not to attack them. The US never made a defensive alliance. The US promised support. They never promised a defensive alliance, which is, insurance talk, because they absolutely should have given them some sort of defensive alliance, but they didn't. Let's see, the last man, woman, and child. That's fucked. That's the Japan way, yeah. The Budapest Memorandum. That's a memorandum, not enforceable the same way. Yeah, it's not an alliance. Because the whole thing that had Russia bitching is that Russia didn't want an alliance. They didn't want an alliance. I do think that this time around, they absolutely need to let Ukraine into the alliance. That's what I want. That's what I want. Ukraine, I know that they're going to say, no, Putin is not going to agree to that because of everything, but Russia just showed that you cannot trust them. That's the whole point of the alliance. They are not to be trusted, so they have to be brought in. That's what I think. That's where I disagree with the overall narrative that the fucking White House has. I disagree with that. I think that Ukraine is going to have to jump into NATO. Georgia, Azerbaijan, fucking Armenia, all of them. Bring India into NATO. Bring Pakistan into NATO. Bring the fucking Middle East into NATO. Bring Africa into NATO. Bring everybody except Russia into NATO. So, and this is not a matter of appeasement. Because you know what happens if the U.S. stops supporting. If U.S. stops supporting, this is not a matter of appeasement. This is a matter of the war is lost. Again, I remember we saw this, that yes, Ukraine is in a better position right now that France was in World War II, before World War II started. The problem is, the implication is that in order for them to get out of this, we would need the World War. Did not work so far with Russia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. Yeah, no. And they should have, and I think that they should have stood firm and said, no, fuck you. These countries need to join the alliance because you just proved that you can't be trusted to not invade them. Russia just can't help themselves. Okay, fine. We're going to add the nuclear deterrent to these countries as well. Because if you can't help yourself to invade them and violate their sovereignty, then we're going to put them in the alliance, all about protecting against you not respecting other people's sovereignty. Never mind, if USA stops supporting, doesn't Ukraine just get bulldozered over? The rest of Europe might be able to alleviate a little bit, but yeah, without American support, their chances of winning go from like maybe 5% to like 0.0005%. So yeah, no, like without the American money and the American equipment, Ukraine just almost insta loses. So, excuse me. Can any European country go toe-to-toe with Russia? Not any individual country. I know that Poland would definitely be able to keep them out. But if they had to go out and fight against the Russians, probably not. Not by themselves. So it would have to be a joint effort. I don't think Europe, and this is one of the things, right? Goes back to one of the points that America has made. The Europeans are notoriously, except Poland, the Europeans are notoriously unarmed. Because they rely on the Americans. And if that American support drops, they are in big support. Americans don't even make a majority of support. Americans have again, 175 billion out of the 380 billion? It's not a majority, but it is a plurality. So, just Vietnam and guerrilla warfare, you really think Russia can bulldoze an entire continent? No, that's the thing, right? If Russia wanted to go further, they would have. They cemented themselves in the Donbass, and they've stayed there. They've launched a couple of, like, strike teams here and there, like disposable strike teams, and they've stayed in the Donbass. So, I don't know. Eventually, we're going to figure out what the hell they wanted, but yeah. Poland, Finland, Sweden, Baltic countries are all the most armed countries in Europe, and all coincidentally border Russia. Yeah. Yeah. And you would probably be able to repel a Russian invasion. Absolutely. The moment it comes to go in, you would likely need the rest. But yeah, Finland and Sweden, they are very well armed. They are not appropriately armed. The Baltic, they do have a decent. Poland is prepared. Poland is prepared. You guys have allocated the amount of resources that you need. Finland, Sweden, decent. Baltics, okay. The rest of Europe, no. No. Hungary a little bit, but they're all lacking, seriously lacking. Like Sweden and Finland are only lacking a bit. Like it's not where it should be, but they're only lacking a bit. Like they can push through and they can make it work. Baltics, they're lacking, but they could possibly pull through. The rest of Europe, they're lacking a lot. They are simply not prepared. Simply not prepared at all. So, US pulled in its military bases. And support from Europe. Take a guess. Oh yeah, the whole of Europe collapses. So, the entirety of the Russians try to bulldoze entire continents that know their fucking land and their house. No, I'm sorry, they'll struggle very heavily. And inversely is the same. If you try to go into Russia, how many people have gotten fucking ruffle stomped at Waterloo? So, let's go, big W, huge W, bigly W. All right, this was a good conversation, but I do want to continue the game. Fuck. Okay, we're gonna go for 15 more minutes to the ending. So let me go to the bathroom. Age of Empires taught me you do not invade Russia in the winter, especially in the winter. The thing you are not taking into account is the possibility of a long-term terrorism if Russia wins too badly. Yes, can absolutely see a new IRA or Al-Qaeda coming out of Ukraine. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and it's probably one of the reasons why the Russians are staying with where they are. Because, like it or not, there is favorable sentiment towards Russia in the Donbass. There was, and there has been. Because there's a lot of ethnic Russians that were living in the Donbass. Was it a majority? I don't think so. But I think it is substantial enough that it has allowed them to settle in. You're not going to have the rest of Ukraine. So, we have to deal with Barry again. Yeah, I'm going to use the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. So, I'm going to put the background music. We'll be right back, and then we're going to play a little bit more. So, I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Let me put the other song. There we go. So, you said a bunch of Russians. There you go. Sorry. Yeah. So, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But, yeah, we're going to end the topic here. Hang on. It's back. I'm back. Let's just close the topic. And yes, Jep, you're right. And in conclusion, I hope you are wrong about the assessment. I hope we get the best case scenario out of these. Time will tell. We have to wait and see what the Americans cook up. So, not ideal. You know my conspiracy theory about this whole thing, about how I think the West has been pushing this hard for Ukraine to stay in the fight because the UK wants to keep their monopoly on money laundering. But that's that's completely separate. Anyway, let's continue. Let's deal with Barry a little more, and then we're gonna go to sleep because it's getting late.
I need to talk to Weaver. She's the one in the song. The
like Istana? Yes, it is. Well, that's coming from me. There's a difference between being an impartial and playing spreading Russian propaganda. Yeah. And right now, as I said, I hope you're wrong. Time will tell. Like, we're gonna find out where things really stood once this is all over. And I hope you're wrong. But we'll see. Good talk, though. Good talk. Thank you for keeping the heads cool. And this is so going up to the channel, dude. Oh, you gave me extra content that I wasn't expecting today. So thank you. I love how that's the takeaway, right? This good content. Let's go content. Anyway, let's continue.